Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Tonight I'm going to be talking to you about the Jack Daniel's Tennessee Rye Whiskey. Now this is a straight rye whiskey, and for those of you who are unaware of the terminology, straight when you're referring to a rye whiskey just pretty much means that it's aged for at least 2 years and it's not a blend. There's a couple of other little nuances in there, but that's what you need to know. So when we're talking about a rye whiskey, usually there's a lot of mash bills that show up pretty frequently. You get 90%, you have 100%, you have maybe like 60 or 51%. And the reason that these are showing up is mostly because of MGP. You know, a lot of rye whiskeys that come out now, let me back up a minute. Rye is a hard grain to work with. And the reason that it's a hard grain to work with is that it makes a mess, right? So when you have your stills and your mash and everything, it's leaving all this crud everywhere. And part of that is from the husks of the rye. And it's just unpleasant to work with. So when you have a place like MGP who's willing to deal with that because they just do it at such a volume, they've kind of mastered the approach, then you're good. And maybe you use theirs. Obviously, Jack Daniel's does not use other people's stuff. They make their own whiskey. So in this case, they have a 70% rye, and it's 18% corn, and it's 12% malted barley. So as you can see, it's a little bit different. Now, let's talk about this whiskey in particular. Now, why am I reviewing this? Well, the honest answer is that I really want to get to the single barrel version of the rye, but I felt like I should review this one first. So, this came out in October 2017, which is not that long ago. And it's also not the first time that Jack Daniel's has tried to do a rye. They did, for about 5 years, they tested out a few different things. They had what's called a white whiskey or white dog or, you know, whatever, moonshine, whatever you want to call it, basically unaged whiskey. And it was fine, you know, but they tried that. And then they did another one that they call rested whiskey, which was 2 years aged. And that was fine. And then they came up with this, which all points kind of say that this is aged at least 3 years, probably more like 4. And it does go through the same process as their Jack Daniel's regular old number 7 of going through the Lincoln County process, where it mellows through 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal. And because of that, it's going to have a little bit of sweetness, more so than rye, and it's going to mute those rye tones. So let's go ahead and taste this and nose this. So let's go ahead and give this a nose. Now, if this is your first time ever watching a whiskey review because you like Jack Daniel's, happen to find this episode, the important thing to remember when nosing is to leave your mouth open. Especially, now this isn't going to be a big problem because actually this is 45% ABV, so it's not going to be a huge burn. But if you leave your mouth open, it creates, it eliminates a little bit of the burn that you get. So, and you just generally kind of get a better nose for it. You want to try to smell out one side, smell out the other side, put your nose in it, put your nose above it, all different ways. See what works for you. Okay, as far as I go, the first thing I kind of notice is that this is sweet, but it's also got that undercurrent of rye. Usually ryes are very spicy on the nose. There's almost a kick that you get just right away. You can know something is a rye. If I smelled this just with kind of blind, I would probably still put it at a rye, but I would probably assume it was less. I would think it would be like a 51% with more heavy corn because it's very sweet, and a lot of that comes from that sugar maple. All right, other than that, I'm getting kind of a chocolate out of here, and the note that I wrote down I thought is kind of interesting because I wrote this down about maybe a week ago, and I was nosing again before filming the episode and had a very similar impression, actually forgetting I had written this. So when you're making brownies and you are all done, you got your pan, you're cutting away the edge. I don't know if you guys do that, I do that. Cutting away the edge so you have just middle stuff. The edge is always a little bit burnt, but it's still chocolatey. And so it's got a little bit of a smell of burnt and a little smell of chocolate. I'm getting that in here. And I know it's a little weird, but I'm hoping that if you're smelling this along with me, after hearing that note, maybe you'll pick it up too. I'd love to hear in the comments if you get that or think I'm completely full of crap. All right, let's go ahead and taste this. Cheers. All right, so The taste is a little bit grainy, and what that means is it tastes young. If you taste it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's not bad. I've certainly had a lot younger whiskeys and about the same age whiskeys, assuming that this is 3 to 4, that have tasted a lot younger. So I'm going to give it a pass on that. The grain is very middle, but you're also getting a little, actually a good amount of banana. Once again, talking more like a now and later, if you want to think it's like a fake banana, but it still tastes pretty prominently of that. I'm actually, I'm impressed that they were able to do that. I'm going to give this one more taste because I'm getting something else here. Yep. So, picture you're raking the leaves in the fall. And as you're raking these leaves, let's say you're in the northeast of the US, you've got a bunch of these acorns kind of underneath a musty pile, not musty, but like a bunch of, dead leaves. A bunch of dead leaves on the ground. You've got the acorns underneath. There's like the dust kicking up. It's got a little bit of that in the taste. I refer to it as dusty acorns here. And then you're also getting just a little bit of oak, but that's pretty muted. Now, what do I think about this whiskey in general? Well, for $27, which is about what this costs, that's pretty close to what you would pay for the same size bottle of regular Jack Daniel's Old No. 7. And you get to try a rye. So, this is what I'm going to suggest for you. If you are interested in trying this, I suggest you get a bottle, and I suggest that you try making some cocktails. Now, this is fine to drink straight. Honestly, I would enjoy this. You might even want to consider putting an ice cube in here. I could see that being pretty refreshing if you have a nice chilled version of this. But I think this is the perfect thing to practice making a Manhattan or an Alabama Slammer or any number of other cocktails that heavily use rye, because it's inexpensive, you can make mistakes, and you can find out about what your palate likes. So that would be my suggestion. I would say for the price, I'd say this is a buy it. If it was even over $30, I don't think I would give it a buy it. I would say try it. But for the versatility, that really pushes it over the edge for me. So thank you for joining me here on this episode of the Whiskey Dictionary, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Look at all these people. Look at that person. Look at that person. All these people are awesome patrons, and you could be too. But if patronage is not your thing, I do sell whiskey glasses. These are very, very cool. It's just a Glencairn, but it has engraving on both the front and the back specific to the Whiskey Dictionary. They're $18 a piece, but the engraving on the front and the back costs a little bit extra, and it helps to support the channel. So obviously I need to make a little bit of a profit. Your profit ends up going directly to new bottles and new videos. So consider purchasing one. I'm actually starting to run out. So whiskey coins, I'm all out of batch 1, but batch 2 is printing, and I should have those in a couple of weeks. So look for an announcement on that. Other than that, thanks again for joining.